So the Ashtavakra continues. He says, I am the doer. This snake of egoism has bitten you. I am not the doer. This nectar of faith, drink it and be happy. Yeah, I am the doer. This snake of ego has bitten you. So the Ashtavakra has already pointed this out before also, that you are not the enjoyer and you are not the doer. And here he is reinforcing it. Here he is re-impressing it, the importance of it, right? That you are not the doer. The belief that I am the doer is the problem and you are not the doer. And what Ashtavakra is pointing out is that the awareness and this action is two completely different things. And the awareness has absolutely nothing to do with any kind of action. Yeah, it's more like saying, let's say the awareness is the space and the camera is in the space. If it is a camera, if it is a book, or if it is anything, the space has absolutely nothing to do with any object altogether, right? In the same way, the Ashtavakra is pointing out, the consciousness, the awareness has absolutely nothing to do with anything, any kind of action altogether, right? This whole doership is a different thing altogether, which is an object of awareness, but the awareness is completely free and completely different from it. Yeah. But then the question becomes, if I am not the doer, then who the heck is the doer? Who is creating this video, right? Somehow the video is being creating and somebody is watching the video. Who is watching the video, right? If you are not watching this video, I am not creating this video, then what is creating this video? Yeah. And the answer would be, is that it's a process. It's the process of cause and effect that is creating the video, that is acting. It's the mind that is acting. It's not the awareness, right? Awareness has absolutely nothing to do with any kind of action. That is what the Ashtavakra is pointing out towards, right? So how exactly this video is being created, right? Let's understand this process in more, in short or in simple way, that how exactly this video is being created, right? So for me to create this video, let's say, I need to have this thought about creating the video and I need to have this desire to create the video, right? Without the thought and desire, how will this action will manifest, right? So somehow this thoughts and desire is coming inside me. Why this thought and desire is coming inside me? The thought and desire is coming inside me because I have consumed this kind of information, right? I have read some books which are like Ashtavakra. I have seen video, I have listened to some other people's video which were useful for me. Maybe I have a desire to create the video for my own personal growth and for somebody else's personal growth, right? So there's multiple different causes, right? There were multiple different actions that happens in the past which has now become a cause to create a different action, right? So this whole process continues like this, right? Currently I'm doing this because of some past action of mine which is now being manifested something like this, right? And my past action happened because I was exposed to certain kind of knowledge or information, right? But then the question is more like, why I am creating this video? I am also consuming, so I also see a lot of videos and information. For example, let's say something like politics. I am not becoming a politician, but I am creating this video. Why is that, right? If the information, I was exposed to that information, I was also exposed to this information. And I was exposed to multiple different information. Then why I am creating the video but not doing something else, right? That is more like based on my past conditioning, right? My conditioning was certain way and I also have some kind of a biological disposition. Based on these things, I find something more interesting and I find something less interesting, right? So based on that, certain information is being, becoming a part of me, right? When I read this kind of a book, it becomes part of me. When I read something like about politician, that doesn't go inside my internal system, right? That creates these desires. For other person, that could be some information that gets inside their system and their desires are different than my desires. Their thought process is different than my thought process, right? So the information could be the similar, but based on our biological disposition and our basic conditioning, we are getting attracted and repulsed to different kind of information, right? If you go another step deeper, why I do have this kind of a conditioning? Maybe because of the childhood experiences, maybe because of the different thing, but you see this process, how this process is actually creating this action and reaction and all these different things, right? This process is what is creating the video. This process is what is creating this desire to create the video, and the action is happening based on that, right? And what Ashtavakra is pointing out, this whole thing, this whole doership, right, has absolutely nothing to do with the awareness. Awareness is completely different than this doership, right? And in fact, just like with the example we took, right, there is a space and any object in the space has nothing to do with the space altogether. Okay. Another example we can see that the relationship between consciousness and the action is like, if you put some seed in the soil, right, and if there is a light, in the presence of the light, that seed grows, right? Light is participating in a way for seed to be, growing, for the seed to be nurturing, right? But at the same time, even though the light is in a way participating in that action, but the light has nothing to do with that action, right? Light has no intention at all, whether it is being directed on a stone or whether it is being directed towards a seed, but the light is completely detached. The light is living in a different dimension altogether, right? The same thing here again about the action and the doership and the consciousness. Even though the doership happens because of the consciousness, in the presence of the consciousness, it is taking the power from the consciousness. But the consciousness has nothing to do with this, right? Consciousness is completely detached from this, right? This is what the Ashtavakra is trying to point it out, right? This awareness is different. This awareness, this consciousness is different than doership altogether, right? Now, this also depends on the person's spiritual interest and spiritual maturity, that how you are going to consume this information, right? If a person who has seen this, if a person is aware enough to see in this way of action, how this action works, right? How this whole cycle of karma works, right? How it binds you, and Ashtavakra is there, right? So Ashtavakra is asking this question, like, how do I get free from this thing, right? Ashtavakra is believing that he is the doer and he is trapped in that doership, right? He is trapped in that action, right? Because this is the way of doership, this is the way of the action. You keep, you act and then it becomes the cause of another action and it continues, the cycle continues, and we feel kind of like, trapped in that. We feel like, how can I possibly be ever getting out of this? And then there is so much different reactions happens because of the action. You feel depressed, you feel anxious, you feel, it's just like it's a major trap if somebody who's seeing, who can see that, right? This whole doership thing. And Ashtavakra is there, so he's asking this question to Ashtavakra. Raja Janaka is there and he's asking this question to Ashtavakra because he can see that, the trap of action, right? Trap of doership. And for somebody like that, this kind of a knowledge is extremely liberating, right? Extremely freeing, right? Let's say the space was, believing that it was the camera and all that thing, and somebody is pointing out, no, you are not the camera, you are not any kind of object that can be in the space, right? That can be very liberating, that I am the consciousness and the consciousness has nothing to do with any kind of object in the consciousness, and this doership is basically just an object in the consciousness, right? So it can be very liberating for a person who has seen the trap of action. On the other hand, if somebody is not spiritually mature, or if somebody is in the early stage of their practices, this kind of a knowledge can be tremendously disturbing, right? Because on the level of doership, if somebody believe as a doer, right? If somebody believe I am not the doer, and that belief system is going to make things very complicated for the person, because now the doer itself start thinking, then the thought process will become something like, if I'm not the doer, then why should I get married? Why should I have kids? Or why should I do some job? Or why should I do anything? Right? This is the sign that the person hasn't transcended the basic, this stage of doership, right? This is not being told to a doer, right? This is being told to the consciousness. This is being, it is being pointed to consciousness what exactly it is. It is not being told to this doership that what you are and what you are not, right? Because the doership has this tendency to cling to things. This doership has this tendency to attract and repulse towards things. So if we cling to this information now, this information becomes a part of the belief, and based on that, the new action and reaction happens, right? In this case, if this kind of a knowledge gets inside a doer's belief system, then the actions are more, you start feeling helpless, you start feeling like disturbed and all these kind of things, right? So the right calibration is important here, but this is a tremendous insight, right? All these actions, all this doership is completely separate from the consciousness. The consciousness has absolutely nothing to do with any kind of action or doership.